Welcome to the Live to Lift Up podcast. This is a storytelling series. It's a storytelling series to share the life, the lessons, the wisdom in Lift Up that Sandy Mohanathan left behind. My name is Danielle Mohanathan, your host of this podcast. And today, I'm delighted to have another guest on our show whose relationship with Sandy, my mother, spans 28 years plus. Hi, Pramukh. How are you doing?
Hey, Danielle. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's such an honor, and I'm looking forward to spending time with you.
Awesome. Awesome. We truly appreciate your time and being here with us today and for the story and the journey that is going to unfold in the session. So a huge thank you to you. So for our listeners who have been on this journey for us or with us, and for those who are joining us on this episode today, why Lift Up? It's a very specific acronym. Each letter has been purposefully chosen based on the life and the legacy that mom lived, not just through her words, but through her actions, her deeds, how she carried herself, and how she shared that with each and every person that she crossed paths with. So the L stands for love, to love unconditionally, because she did. She loved with reckless abandon. It transcended creed, culture, class, pretty much anything. She just loved. The I is to inspire growth, inspire through humanity, through humility. The F is foster growth and harmony, because through harmonious interactions and spaces created, are we able to better observe our fellow human being, for them to share with us where they're at and what they're actually going through, so that we are able to together lift as we rise. Because when we rise, we have the opportunity and the privilege to take others along with us. The U is for universal, because mom was a universal citizen, universal global citizen, and that we have experienced so far in every one of our episodes for people based across all parts of the world, in different age groups, creeds, backgrounds, languages, experiences, a truly global human citizen. And P, last but not least, is for passion, because she lived with pure, unadulterated passion. And it came from such a pure place. It came from a place of genuinely wanting to make better what she found based on the other human being, seeking to better understand. So without further ado, Pramukh, once again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm truly appreciative of your time. Myself and the team have been very looking forward to this episode, because your story, as I briefly shared up front, with mom spans over 28 years. So I think to start off there, could you please share with me firstly your name, your surname? Should anybody want to look you up or follow you after this episode, I have no doubt that that's going to happen. But also to share how it all began. Please let us know, 28 years ago, how and where did you meet Sandy Mohanathan?
Thank you, Danielle. So, my name is Pramukh Jeyathilak. And first things first, I think this is remarkable. The work that you're doing to keep the legacy of your mom alive is a true tribute to her. There's a lot of us who pass through life. There's a lot of us who think we're doing a lot of good things. I think there's a lot of us who believe that we are impacting and influencing others. Uh, but there are people like Sandy, your mom, and my good friend, who truly epitomized what making a difference means. And the fact that we're talking about her even after she's passed, and I'm sure we'll talk about her for a long time to come, is a testament to the kind of person that she was, she is, and will always be. I had the distinct pleasure of knowing Sandy for a long time, and it started professionally when we were in Anderson Consulting. And this was even before her Accenture days. A lot of her know her from her Accenture days, but I know her from the Anderson Consulting days. And there's a few things that stick out. This was in the late 90s when Accenture which was then Anderson Consulting, was kind of structuring itself, preparing itself to become the company that we all know. So the way the company was organized did not follow the kind of structure that companies follow today. There was a loose grouping of countries that included Middle East, Africa, Central and Eastern Europe, India. So, independent of the structure, a group of us came together to drive the business outcomes that a company like Anderson Consulting wanted to drive. It brought together a whole host of people in the human resources function from across this potpourri of countries. And Sandy represented very proudly South Africa. And I, being of Indian origin, was working in Central and Eastern Europe at that time, running a part of the business for Anderson Consulting. But because of the fact that we were that region that were kind of emerging, we all got clumped together. We all came together as emerging countries because the potential in our countries was very high. But if you think of it from a HR perspective, if the potential of a country is really high, it's largely driven by the potential that people in those countries also have. So the human resources function was a very critical function. Understanding what talent we had and how do we deploy that talent to drive those business outcomes was our primary focus, without getting too technical into the role of HR. Now, someone like Sandy was responsible in that sense to identify what that human potential from a commercial perspective was, understand talent that the organization had, and how do you nurture and grow the talent to drive those business outcomes, in this case for South Africa. And I was doing it in another part of the world. So that was what got us all together. But look, I have such fond memories of her, including the time I spent with her in South Africa. The first thing I think, which I'm sure everybody mentions, is she came across as a very genuine human being. Look, we all had these titles, we all had positions, we all were doing something which can be labeled as head of, country leader. We all had titles. And many times we approach people, our relationships with people start from that positional leadership paradigm.
Mm.
We introduce ourselves as I am the, I represent. And especially in professional settings, that's a given. But I think for me, the memory of Sandy was, I think she represented all of humanity. She represented what it is to be a human being. And I think the early connections that I have with her was not because she was the HR manager of South Africa and I was but it was so much around, here I am as a person. Who are you as a person? And I think the fact that she had that Indian origin in her and she saw me, and the fact that I was in a country which was not the country of my origin, actually fascinated her tremendously. And this is going back many, many years when movement of talent was not as common as it is today. So I left my country, which is India, 28 years ago and went to Prague in the Czech Republic at a time when talent movement across the globe was not common as it is today. So culturally, it was a new experience for us. Professionally, it was a new experience for us. I was responsible for running a country, i.e., India. I moved to a region where I had to run multiple countries, which included countries like the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Poland, Russia. Didn't know the culture, didn't speak the language. More importantly, didn't look like any of those people. But that was a unique experience that I had professionally. And I moved with my then 1-year-old son. And growing up and having someone grow up in an environment like that was also very unique for him and the experiences that he had later on. But in all of this, I met Sandy. Why am I telling you this context is she was absolutely fascinated that a person who looks like her, obviously who doesn't talk like her and sound like her, is living in a country which is miles and miles and miles and miles away from home. I recall very clearly sitting in your home in Johannesburg many years ago, where she told me, from a meeting you in Prague, you living in that country actually inspired me to travel and get out of South Africa. So my early beginnings and my early connection, I think, with Sandy was, I think, mutually beneficial because she believed that impossible is nothing. And I recall telling her all the nightmare stories that me and my family had living in Prague. I nearly came close to getting killed uh, a day before my birthday many years ago just because of the color of my skin. I was attacked and mugged. And I still recall that she gave me an insight to how life happens in South Africa. And she used it as a teaching moment for me. And I still recall very clearly when I was so utterly shaken up, explaining to me the importance of self preservation and self care and protecting oneself. And those were concepts that I couldn't wrap my head around because I came from a country, i.e., India, where I could go anywhere, walk in the streets at any point in time, but not be scared of physical safety. And she gave me a lesson into how lives for her and the lives of many people back home was something that she believed is a good lesson for people like me when we live in unknown environments, like the environment that I lived in. So I'm giving you these kind of detailed insights because the impact that she had on me to how to self preserve, take care of myself, not put myself in harm's way was a great lesson that I learned when I was in my late 20s, early 30s that I've carried for the rest of my life. Over the years, I've traveled to war zones, I've traveled to remote parts of the world where personal safety was paramount. And I clearly recall the stories that she said, how she used to protect herself when they drive, what they do when they stop at at traffic lights. I can go on, but I think there are deeper connections that I've had with Sandy because of the life experiences we've lived, which also means that I've not told you anything about our professional experience. Because for me, with Sandy, my professional connection and professional interactions with her always came second.
I don't even know where to pick up from where you've shared what, because there's so much in here. And I'd be remiss if I didn't capture the first letter of the acronym lift up in loving unconditionally, because that sister love that she gave you and how she coached, I suppose, to provide you with safety once again in yourself after a very traumatic experience like that of being mugged and your life being put at risk and in danger, to not only continue to inspire you to keep going, be more mindful, more conscious, but keep living, right? Keep fostering the growth in yourself. Together with the right lessons and the right people and the right team members, you can keep rising. That, this universal connection that you and mom had. And I'm so grateful that you've mentioned the inspiration in your relationship to encourage her and inspire her to move abroad, her and dad, on several occasions. That is profound, and I'm going to get to that too. But that universal connection, like you're saying, you're an Indian national. You found yourself in Prague, so far removed from home, meeting a South African Indian, sharing that experience, which transcended the title. It hit the human connection, and to do it with passion, because the both of you have lived extremely colorful, enriched lives that have gotten you to where you have gotten and continue to go. You in life and mom still in death through this podcast. The legacy continues. But I think in capturing just in these first few mentions, right, from your side, Pramukh, how it encapsulates uh, the lift up acronym, I want to actually touch on not only the human relationship and bond that you built and had over those many years. Because when you say Anderson Consulting, this is a very long time ago. This is before Accenture became Accenture. As I don't know if many people know that Consulting came first and then became Accenture, right? But I wanna expand on firstly the personal connection and how that personal connection carried into professional connection. Because there are many, knowing you for as long as we have as a family, You've always been filled with a wealth of knowledge, experience, information, wisdom, and I really want to ensure that transcends and translates in this discussion, because it really will support others for how you and mom did this together, and it transcended boundaries and physical proximity. So the relationship from a personal perspective that you and mom had and grew and nurtured, and how you also did that from a professional perspective, because that comes second to the human
Mm.
for sure.
Thank you, Daniel. You said a lot of kind words about me, which I don't deserve. But look, at the end of the day, when you think about the impact of people in your lives and the human element to it, I think I would characterize my connection with in three words,
Mm,
uh, and those three words, which is actually an acronym that I use in my own household with my own family. Just as background, married to my wife Shilpa for over 30 years, have two wonderful sons, who both my sons and my wife have made me the kind of person I am. So I give them a lot of credit for who I am. But, growing up, I always believed that there should be something that defines our family, the identity of our family. What sets the Jeyathilak family apart from other families? And I think thinking through that, I decided, and there's a little bit of that corporateness in me, which said there should be an acronym that should define our family. And the acronym is CSG, is Care, Share, Give. I'm hoping that if you pick up the phone to one of my sons or my wife and say, what is the identity that defines the Jeyathilak family? They'll say Care, Share, and Give. And so I think a lot of my creation of identity of my family were inspired by people like Sandy, because she was someone, like you said, cared for someone like me in the circumstances that I found myself. She cared for my professional well being, which I think was second, but she always cared for my human well being. She always was concerned about what was happening in my life. Because from Prague, after spending 4 years, we moved to Dubai. We spent 6 years in Dubai, and then we moved to Singapore. And we spent time before we moved to Seattle 16 years ago. And I think she's visited us in all our homes. And she kept that connection, right? Whether it was in Prague or Dubai or Singapore. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it to Seattle, even though she was planning to. So that's it, the care element of it. The second thing is sharing. I think when I say sharing, I think she shared what she had. She opened up her house for me every time I came to South Africa. She took special care in taking us around, because there are times when I've traveled with other colleagues as well, and taking us around, being very proud of the country that she was from, but also very proud of her ethnicity. I remember the times when we were planning the trip to Durban, and how she wanted me to come to Durban with her, sharing the culture, showing me what it is to be South African, the whole aspect of the Rainbow Nation, and a whole host of things that I learned from her. And then giving of her time, of her interest, unconditionally. And there are a few things, again, that I recall. Y'all had, I don't know whether you recall, a C-Class Mercedes, which they were in Johannesburg. And I think she had just bought it, and I was not used to driving cars like that. And I still recall she allowed me to drive her car. And I still recall, I think other than Claude, no one has ever sat in the driver's seat other than herself. And she was so nervous and anxious. And I'm sharing that example because, as I think about sharing, and I think she had this nice way about her, and she was obviously very cheeky, as you know. She had a great sense of humor. Uh, Knowing where I came from, I still recall she said, like, dude, you never sat behind the wheel of a car like this. So I'm going to give you the opportunity. So she had this bit of pride in saying, you're going to drive a Mercedes for the first time ever in your life. That's my Okay. So show respect. And then in my subsequent trips, when I came, I'm a golfer, so I carry my bag. I tried to play, and there were many times like she took me under her wings, like I was one of her family. She would drive me to the golf course, drop me there, and she said, "No, no, no, you shouldn't come back on your own. It's not safe." And then 4 hours later, she'll come pick me up and take me home. And so I still recall, when I say share, it's not just sharing the fact that she opened up our home, like sharing her car with someone like me, I think was monumental. So I still recall when I was in Dubai, I remember buying myself a Mercedes. And the first person I called was Sandy with a picture and said, "Look, I made it." And so there were so many connections, and I can go on. These were small connections that were beyond the fact that we were colleagues at Accenture. And then we were at Microsoft um, um, at some point as well, connected. But Sandy, for me, will never be known as that HR colleague of mine. Yes, she will be, but the memories that I have of her is the person that she was and the connection. Now, she also, in this whole time, was exceptionally protective of me. She was exceptionally protective of me. And look, when I was younger, I was a little bit more playful. So, who I'm hanging out with, what am I doing, where am I, especially when we were on these trips collectively in other parts of the world, she was always looking out for me. And in her words, keeping me out of trouble. And that was super, super important for her. And towards the end, I remember I was in Johannesburg. I'm also a whiskey drinker. And she took me to this whiskey bar in Johannesburg. And she said, "Look, I've lived here for so many years. I've never gone into this whiskey bar before, but I'm going to do it because I can't leave you on your own here." And so there was this whole element. I still recall I was looking at those pictures. We were in there, and Sandy was just so taken up by all of this whiskeys on the shelf and the fact that I knew my stuff. And I still recall she pulled me aside on the way back and said, "Brother, you got to go slow on this stuff. That stuff could kill you." Like in her own, cheeky ways, she was trying to look out for me. She was constantly kind of looking out for me. And yeah, so that about Sandy, I think is unique. In my life, I've met so many people, hundreds and thousands of people. But I'll be honest with you, Daniel, I don't think I can sit and talk about stories and my experiences with people like this, even for 10 minutes. I can sit and talk about so many stories for hours. And you recall the time when we went to Soweto. I used to like bug her to go to the Shabins and have a drink. And she'll say, "Sure, no, you shouldn't be going there. What is it that you like about it?" And yeah, she was always looking out for me. But she never, like in a way, was heavy handed, right? So she used to say, "Do you really want to do this? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to go there?" She was always looking out, but not in a heavy handed manner.
Yeah, it's you've captured again so much in terms of what resonates with love again. There's such a genuine, and I love your family acronym. Actually, before I go on, CSG, such a wonderful set of values. And the values are such an important part of life.
Mm,
And it does come down to each of us have different values or how we align on our respective values, but not just saying that, how we show it. And I feel that's potentially how mom connected with you, because it was values. You felt it. You felt the love. You felt the care. You felt the sharing. I love the story about the Mercedes, and what I'll openly share with you, Pramukh, and why you should feel privileged that mom drove you around and dropped you off and picked you up, is because that was not something she did for anybody and everyone.
mm,
That's a really rare occasion. From my experience and memories of mom, and the giving aspect, right? I just love that even though she would seek to understand, the curiosity factor was high. Why do you want to go to the Shebeens? But why do you want to drink this whiskey? It's not good for you. Why? She's seeking to better understand, but still giving you the opportunity and the platform to live your life, have the experience, do it. But let me also give you, again, the full circle care of going, but maybe this isn't the best choice.
Mm.
I'm not going to force you, but have you maybe thought that there's a better way to do this or a better way to go about it? And that speaks to such a deep love that she held. And it really, it has. It's been a privilege to hear that mom made the time, right? Making time for the people in our lives. And that can come in many forms. It can come in the form of going and spending time. It can come in the form of making the time to catch up. It can come in the form of giving a gift. It can come in the form of a lesson. It can come in the form of doing for somebody when they aren't able to do for themselves, whether it's dropping you off at the golf course, or it's being the safe space held for you to say, I'm so sorry about what happened to you on the streets of Prague, but I'm here. I'm here, and this is how I'm going to support you out of it. And I think to that degree, because I am really curious, your journey started at Anderson Consulting and then even moved to Microsoft and so on and so forth. What do you think
Mm.
kept your bond alive? What kept your bond and your relationship alive? And the reason I ask this is specifically because earlier on in the week when we chatted, Pramukh, you shared something so profound with me about mom's character
Mm.
that the foundation was always there. She knew her values, she knew her morals, she knew who she was. And what happened was she just kept building on as she went. She just further entrenched and learned and expanded based on a very clear, solid foundation. So what allowed for your relationship to continue to grow and blossom and expand and stay connected? What was the secret sauce? And now I am going to ask you for more of the professional side of
Yeah.
things.
So I always believe relationship is like clapping hands, right? You need two hands to clap. And I think Sandy was a willing partner in bringing that other hand to me to clap. And so when you see willingness in people to bring their hand unconditionally, then
Mm.
that relationship transcends time. There are some times when we are forcing ourselves on people. We want to be connected. We lend our hand, but the other person is not putting their hand out. Sandy was not like that. I always felt that she had a very strong foundation. And I think her foundation, to a great extent, Daniel, was built around all of you, the family. She had a very strong support system in Claude and you and Rick. And I think that made the foundation strong. She was exceptionally self assured as well, Daniel. So that was an element of that foundation that she had. Number three, impossible was nothing. She never would give up. And I know there are other people who've known her before my time, the professional journey that she's gone through, where she started in her career and where she ended up. So I think that spirit of never giving up, but also saying impossible is nothing, that against all odds, I will persevere and I will see success. And she didn't do that with a song and a dance. She did it within her own limitations. So I think that's the third aspect of that solid foundation. Number four, I think she had this good balance between who she was as a person and who she was as a professional.
Yeah.
So when you talk about her professional attributes, she wanted to be considered as the best HR professional, not just in South Africa, but across Accenture, across Microsoft, across the world. So I think she worked really hard at her profession. And that was very evident in that strong foundation that she built. So a combination of all of these gave her enough tailwinds to handle any relationship personally drive a professional pursuit and do it well with a lot more confidence because she was never on shaky ground. And that, I think, is such a unique ability that someone like Sandy had that some of us don't. Because as we think we are stronger in one, we get weaker in the other. We always live in this world of this or that. But to me, Sandy was in the this and that world. So she was not the or person, she was the and person. So that was the foundation. Those were the foundations that also helped her professionally. Like I know professionally, we say that our internal clients and our customers are critical for the success of the HR function. The relationship that she had with her business leaders internally was very strong. People saw her as an expert. She was counted for her professional insight and advice. And she would, and again, the challenge that we have in HR leadership roles, are we too aligned towards quote unquote management or the employer? Or are we too lenient and we're going down to employees? But she had this nice balance. She took what the organization wanted to people and she represented people really well. So the janitor, the person who was parking your car, was as important as the CEO of the company. And people knew that about her, right? She's not one of those people who would index to one side and be seen as the dash, dash, dash of the company. I think she had that overall balance to what she did. And that was that strong foundation. She could connect with people and understand what people on the front lines wanted. That gave her credibility when she was trying to solve massive challenges in people, culture, and organization as a HR professional. So she was multi-dimensional. She was able to look at an organization as a HR professional in a 360 manner. The other thing that I've known about her professionally is she was inspirational to her own teams. She would rally people around her cause. I mean, we had to do some horrible work as HR people, as HR professionals. Some of our day to day was exceptionally challenging. I mean, we knew the challenges that we had and the kind of struggles we had as HR professionals on a day to day basis, which a lot of other people don't know. But she made the reality of her day to day life that much more easier and better because of the professionals that she surrounded herself with. She hired well, she hired strong people. So she made the day to day of her HR role that much more interesting, less challenging, and meaningful. And the one simple reason, in my view, she came across as an authentic human being. The tag, I am the head of HR for this country, I'm the head of HR for this business, I'm the head of HR for this region, was not what she led with. Every person who worked with her was able to connect with her as Sandy as the person, and that made the struggle so much more easier. That team was always in it together, and she looked out for those people.
Again, I'm going to go back to the experience of what happened to you in Prague, right?
Mm,
That deep care. I feel that as an HR professional,
mm,
human resources, being a human first is a non-negotiable.
mm,
And we've also spoken about this earlier in the week of there's this almost this thinking along the lines of HR was made for her and she was made for HR, because that that's not something that everybody has and everybody wants to do. Life can be transactional. People can be transactional about things, but not with mom. There was always this, yes, I may be able to say with you that that is not good for you. That is not going to take you down the right path. That is not aligned to the goal or the objective or the business, right? What we're trying to driving an outcome. What is it that we're all here to do? Let's focus. But she was easily able to somehow separate the human from the role and then put it back again. It's almost like in listening to you, your stories and how she would operate as a team lead and bring people along and drive the outcome and getting everybody onto the same page. And it almost strikes me as you have to seek to better understand the human. You have to show up as a human and be there for the person before you can even begin to achieve a result, achieve as a team, achieve the goals and the targets and the metrics. The human comes first.
Hmm.
And I feel that from the very get go of this conversation, that has really stuck out for me, right? In that from the moment you met her to the very last moments, because I know which whiskey bar you're referring to. I could almost get this. I could see her excitement, that curiosity, the wide eyes, the oh my goodness, the genuine gobsmacked nature of it all, because that's who she was. She was like a kid in a candy store, right? I think the question I want to possibly ask you is, how do you think she built that sense of self? How do you think she built not just the sense of self, but her deep, genuine, authentic care for her fellow human being? And how do you think she built an overflow in herself to be able to give and give and give? I'm going to use your acronym to CSG.
Like I said, Daniel, I wish I had a chance to go back to her childhood. And then a lot of people spoke about her childhood, but speak to her in a very different way. I think the environment in which she grew up, I think had a lot to play in the person that she was. I think the environment has an impact on all of us. The backgrounds that we carry with us, either spiritually, professionally, from a family perspective, from a culture perspective, from the country perspective, sometimes makes us who we are. I think how she grew up and the challenges that she experienced growing up, I think made her sit back and say, I'm not going to let anyone else go through this in life ever again. If I have an opportunity to change the reality, which in her early days she may not have been able to, I'm now in a position of authority, and I'm using air quotes very intentionally because authority was not what she sought. That if I'm in a position of authority, I'm going to make things better for people. I was not able to do a lot of things when I was younger and I was in that formative stages of my life because of the system in which I grew up. But I'm going to create a system for younger people or people who are early in career to be able to use and to grow in a
Mm,
manner that was different for me.
mm,
So I think she was very pragmatic about all of what she grew up with. And I think she very clearly wanted to make it different for other people. So
mm,
this is not going to be the reality that I want my children to grow up in. This is not the reality that I want my colleagues to experience. This is not the reality that should be taken for granted now that the environment around us has changed. So she took the positives of all of the challenges that she went through, and that defined who she was. That was herself, and that played itself out uh, with people. Now, when you're doing that, all of the actions that go along with it is always forward looking.
yeah.
I want to make it better. I want to change the reality. She's always moving forward. She's not going back and saying, I had such a challenging time in my life. I want to have people experience that one more time. But she was always forward looking. And as I mentioned to you the other day, and when you're in that forward momentum, you bring people along. If you're backward looking, you're going to tell people, stop, 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 turn around, look back.
Mm,
And
mm,
it's preventing a person from moving forward.
absolutely.
It's like you're on a walk with someone, and if the person starts walking faster, you keep up with them. If the person says, stop, let's look back, you're going to stop and look back. Your momentum is lost. You're going to waste time, and you have no control of what you've left behind. So I think that was, I think, how I saw her, that she was always wanting to move forward. She was always wanting to make things better.
Yeah.
She never took anything at face value. That's why I said earlier, impossible is nothing. And so that is how she showed up in all of those areas, in terms of herself, in terms of the people she worked with, and the people she impacted. Now, when it came to someone like me, I think there were elements of who I am that made a lot of sense to her. I don't want to say, I inspired her, but we had these hour-long conversations because we used to meet each other in person. I've come to your home. I've been to South Africa many times, even after I left Microsoft. And the thing that that realized is she was constantly pushing me to move forward. What are you going to do next? How are you thinking about the next 5 years? Where's your family going to settle? You've been this nomad. Where is home for you? So she was constantly pushing me to think forward. She never sat back and said, let's talk about 20 years ago when you had a terrible situation. So that mindset of constantly moving forward, even with someone like me, gave me that impetus to do things. If I changed the job, one of the early people I would text was Sandy and say, look, I've decided to move out of this job and I'm going to go there. What do you think? And she'll ask me 5 questions and she will give me a perspective, which was important. When she was doing things at Dark Matter, she used to text me and we used to be on WhatsApp. And so we were deeply connected towards the end. And in fact, a couple of weeks even before she passed and before she went for this trip, we texted each other and said, look, she said, I've got something to share with you. And I'm on this trip. When I come back, I'll share with you. I think it was a new home, or it could be another up thing that she was pursuing. But keeping me moving forward, I think was something that she did unintentionally. But to
Mm.
me, that was a big difference.
The genuine, heartfelt
Hmm.
connection, experience, journey, lessons, the movement. I love that. Keep moving forward. Don't look back. Don't look back. It's happened. The there's just so much in the heart space that I can feel in this conversation and a warmth about it, which is out of everything I know my mother to always be,
Hmm.
because that woman is a legend and has left such a legacy for so many, is that the heart, her warmth, the way that she was able to, if I go back to the acronym of LiftUp,
Hmm.
together rise. We do this together. We keep each other accountable. We check in. The 5 questions that you mentioned.
Hmm.
I think all throughout the points of your journey together, making time for each other, but it's also centered in the heart space of genuine care for one another. The reason I'm highlighting all of these aspects is, again, a relationship is only met truly, authentically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, intellectually, socially, when we meet at the heart space.
Hmm.
And that really, I believe, and I see rather, not I believe, I see that it is what kept you both growing together over a period of 28 years.
Hmm.
And I suppose now that mom is no longer here, how do you ensure that you continue to self motivate and drive? Because that's another huge thing she was such an advocate for, and she was so good at naturally, is to be able to identify in each person their strengths, what made them shine, what made them who they were, and to see a side of themselves that they might not see, to inspire themselves. So, what is it that you will be doing to ensure that you continue that legacy, to from 5 years from now. Yes, you're living here. It's 1 foot, one out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out almost, right? How and what will you be doing, Pramukh, to ensure that you continue to inspire yourself, move your needle, ensure your roots are so firmly in the ground, ensure that you're making better decisions and choices, because that's important, right? Is that we're able to do that for ourselves long after the person is gone. Because none of us are going to be here forever.
Sure.
So how will you be doing that?
This may sound very simple, but if someone like Sandy could do it, bloody hell, I should be able to do it too. Right. So there's this motivation. I think she set a marker of what it is to be a good human being. So I wake up every morning saying I want to be a better human being and not necessarily saying I want to be a good businessman or a HR professional, right? And so if there are people like Sandy who've done it, it gives me that impetus to be a better human being, right? Number two, I think Sandy was able, I don't know whether balance is the right word, to include a lot of things in her own life, her work, her family, her travels, her passions, her interests. And I've listened to some of the earlier podcasts, how she's kept in touch with people over years, done things for them at certain events in their lives. I think it's like a kaleidoscope, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, how she was able to bring all of that together, right? So I think that's another area where I say, look, life cannot be unidirectional. It has to be multi-directional. There are many pieces that makes up the jigsaw puzzle of life.
Yeah.
How can one do that? And third thing is, look, the whole aspect of CSG, right? How can I care? How can I share? How can I give and do all of that unconditionally? Because there are people like Sandy who've done it, and people like Sandy who've seen the benefit of doing it over a period of time. And so, those are things that for me are takeaways. The professional aspects of how we get defined, I think, is secondary at this stage in my life to how one gets defined as a person. I mean, yes, we talked about your mom being a human resources leader, but that was not the primary focus of this conversation. Even though I met her as one HR professional meeting another HR professional, that kind of paled into insignificance over a period of time. So I think that's it. And the last thing that I would say is I think people like you keeping her legacy going and for us to have conversations like this, where people can say, yes, I can live a life like this person, in this case, Sandy, is, I think, motivating enough for a whole host of people. And to be able for people not just to lift themselves up, but to lift other people,
Yep.
I think is the call to action for me and all of those people who are listening.
Beautiful. I, you hit the nail on the head. It's about becoming a better human so that you can be a better human for others in turn. And so the domino effect and the spillover and so on and so forth,
Mhm.
right? That ripple effect. That was so poignantly, profoundly put. And I love that you pulled in. It's about doing it for another person. Don't keep it to yourself. Do it for another person if you're capable and you're able to do it. And even if not, maybe do it anyway and see what happens. And Pramukh, I think this is such a wonderful segue or a lead into our leading question for this podcast. It's something we ask each of our guests, and we ask the audience to think deeper through. But it's, who has lifted you up today, and how are you lifting others up?
Yeah, look, I mean, for me, it'll be unfair if I name one person because I think for me, being lifted up is elements of people, circumstances, situations, and this health journey that I'm on, right? There are inspirations in all of those that I seek on an ongoing basis. So I think that's how I look at life and look at where I sit currently today. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would said something different.
Mm.
For me, someone like my father will always continue to be an inspiration. right? Someone who I still think guides me in a lot of things that I do, and also guides me in a lot of things that I don't do. But there are people that you come across that you want to remember and keep their memory forever. There are a lot of people that I've come across in life that I don't have anything to do with. And it's not because it's just a selfish view, but because of the concept of this coming together of two hands, right? I think the best learning happens when two hands come together. So Sandy was one of those people who brought her hand out, sometimes proactively, than me bringing my hand out. So people like her always will continue to stick in my mind. Someone would check in on you. Someone would say, look, without saying those words, I'm there for you, or you're there for me. I want to talk to you about something. Right. So I think people who lift me up are those who can bring their hand proactively to me, and someone who I can comfortably place my hand on. And I think I realized that, as you said, Daniel, we are all mortal, right? We're here for a while. We try to live a good life and then we're gone.
Yeah.
But when we lose someone, do we stop the journey that we are on? We can't. And that's why I think seeking motivation, seeking inspiration, seeking that ability to learn has to be multifaceted and multidimensional. The day we limit it to one thing, and I'm not saying one thing is not right, sometimes we miss the opportunity of what life gives us. Because life at the end of the day is good.
That is a great answer, Pramukh. That is because everybody will impact us in some way, shape, or form along this journey. Some more than others, but it is a puzzle piece. It is a jigsaw of the parts coming together and creating each of us.
Mm.
But what I do truly appreciate about how you've concluded that answer is about moving forward. We must. It is how we are designed. It's what we've been put here to do. We've got gifts, we've got talents, we've got skills, we've got capacity, we've got capability. Impossible is nothing. It's true. But it takes the mindset to be able to resonate with that and let it sink in and go, okay, right, let me get to it. And I believe that this conversation with you really has supported, again, I'm going to bring it back to the L, the love, unconditional love. It really has shown that with sufficient love, inspiration, fostering your own growth, coming together, being open to being a universal citizen, because like this, we're sitting in very different parts of the world. You're in Seattle, I'm in South Africa, and having enough passion for yourself and whatever's around you, you are able to create a kaleidoscope of a life that is a marvel to look at and share with others. You can shine those fragments of light onto everybody around you. I think that's the lovely part about it, right? You shine, everybody. So Pramukh, I want to say thank you for sharing so much of the journey that you walked with mom over all this time, the lessons, the stories, the sincerity, just bringing your whole self authentically to this conversation to share with all our listeners what was and will forever be a part of Sandy Mohanathan that you experienced and witnessed firsthand. And even up until the final moments, you still had that experience. So thank you for your time. Thank you for all that you have shared. Thank you for just sharing it so freely. Your energy resonates. And yeah, I do. From myself and the entire LiftUp team, we are very grateful that you have come here today and you have just painted a picture that gives an additional depth and layer to mom. um yeah, you've done Oh, I feel mom would be so proud listening in on this conversation because her job is done with you.
Right.
She did great. So well done to you too for owning that, and how you're gonna continue to do that. And just to share a big thank you to Vic, our production manager and editor and the man behind the camera. Thank you for all that you do in putting all of this together for our listeners to take from and constantly tap into. And to Dad, Claude Mahanathan and Pranay, Govender, thank you both for the ideation in this podcast. And to you again, Pramukh, thank you. Thank you for joining us and for all that you so freely share. And to every one of our listeners that take the time to tune in, to comment, to send us your feedback, to share with another who this might help and lift up. Thank you. Please continue to like, subscribe, follow our channels. And if you would like to be on this podcast or have any suggestions for a guest you would like us to interview, please let us know. We are very open to that. But may each of you continue to lift up and be mindful of how you are uplifting those around you. Thank you very much.